So we just finished reading Rachel Crothers' Nice People. A couple of things I found out about it before we dive into the discussion I just thought were interesting. So Crothers actually broke new ground by directing, staging, and casting most of her own plays, which was pretty unheard of for a woman in the 1920s and 30s. She also directed several plays written by other people. Nice People came out in 1921, and it actually includes comic portrayals of flapper characters that were prominent in the 1920s.
Yes.
Crothers was always finding ways to try to empower women through her stories and tell a different narrative than what was going around in theater in that time. So with those things in mind, what were y'all's initial thoughts on the play? Just feel free to raise your hand and I'll get to you. Courtney.
I just wanted to say I didn't realize that the playwright wrote, I knew that she wrote, directed, like you said, and I think it's very apropos, this, how she writes the women who want to do what they want and break through these, what's expected of them. So I think that's so appropriate, and I just appreciated that, and it just makes more sense when you said that. So yay.
Josue and then Andre.
Yeah, what struck to me, I had to kind of double back a couple of times when hearing it, because there was a lot of modernity in it. Like even just the writing itself. Like I think somebody said I just want to know where I'm at. And I was like, whoa, that's like we say that. Why is that there in the 20s? And then, but also I'm sure this must have been a crazy controversial play. She's talking about women having sex pre-marriage and being really open about it and not even open, but being hey, this should be okay. Where's the problem kind of thing. And then even the last page was really surprising. It was really cool where the woman proposed to the man. And I was like, oh, that's cool. That's really badass. That I'm sure some norms were subverted there. And Gloucester's not even Gloucester, but Margaret as well. They're the old guard, and she's kind of talking to them already.
Mm-hmm.
So it'd be really interesting to know what that reception was from people who saw it at that time. Were people shocked? Or what was it like?
Yeah. Andre?
It's funny because when I first read this play, I was like, damn, the men are kind of aggressive in this. And then just hearing it out loud, some of the things I thought, how they were characterizing the people, finally, what was it? Finally animal, something animal.
Oh, finally bred animals.
Yeah, I was just like, ooh, that's a lot. And it's where even for 2020, some of the stuff in the play kind of shocked me and then not shocked me, and some of the things I was just like, that shit's still going on today. You know what I mean? The way the how they kind of had Ted almost they had Ted like she was a thought. You know what I mean? It was crazy to me that it's still going on in 20.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my initial reaction to it.
Amanda?
I love this play. I think it's so accurate and hilarious in so many ways, just putting it in your face. And now where we're at now, you can almost laugh at some of the stuff because you're like, oh man, that was really ballsy at the time. And it is still going on today. So that's a whole thing. But I love that the name of the lead girl is shortened to Ted all the time, which is also a thing, which I don't know at that time if that was the norm in the 20s, or if that was always just like a lot of women were named Theodora and nicknamed Ted or Teddy. Like, I don't know historically how common that was, but I do like it reading from the lens now, where to me Ted is a masculine name, and she's turning shit over, and you know, yeah, flips a table, leaves. You can't tell me I'm going to the party.
What? Well, I do think it's interesting how quickly some of the characters, I guess not quickly, because we don't know necessarily how much time has passed throughout the play because of the way the stage directions are kind of set up.
Aside from the 36 hours that have passed.
Yeah. Outside of like Aunt Margaret all kind of coming to Ted's side in Act 3 and the end of Act 2 with her and Billy, and like the very much a changeover from who we saw in Act 1, where she was talking about how essentially Ted was going to ruin the family name by going out and partying with all of these low lives, but also very nice, well-off people. It was a very odd combination of things.
Oh, I took that when I was reading it as in like when even like for family members today, like when someone of an older status comes to the younger person, they see them doing things that's technically not okay. It's mostly because they was doing the same thing, the very same thing, and then they were chastised for it. And now they're trying to, I guess, rectify for themselves more than others, but they don't feel bad. They don't think it's wrong. They're just doing it because they're like, well, if I was corrected, then that's what I need to do to correct the younger ones. And you saw at the end of the play, but she really was just like, it's okay. It's cool.
Amanda, I think I saw your hand up.
Yeah, that's a great point, and I love the lines in the beginning where he's like, you're just, what we did back then was the same as they're doing now. It's just they're open about it, they're not hiding, and I love that. And it reminds me of like a couple months ago or weeks ago, whenever 2020 was forever long and I have no sense of time, there was a conversation going back when WAP got released, and someone I know posted a status about like, WAP, oh my God, this is horrible. Absolutely not. She's not a class act. That's disgusting. And then people in the comments were either one of two ways. They're that same age demographic, and they were like, oh, that's disgusting. I've never been a fan, but I definitely won't listen to that song. I'm like, so you're judging it before you even listen to it, number one.
They wouldn't listen to it anyway.
Yeah. And then someone else came in the comments and was like, that's what our parents said about rock and roll. Like, this is exactly the same thing. And I commented, I was like, Cole Porter back in the day had very racy lyrics. They were all sexual innuendos. They were so inappropriate at the time. It was like insanity. And it's the same thing going on now. Like the youngins who loved Cole Porter, their parents were like, oh my God, Cole Porter, you're the top. Ooh. Like,
I mean, that one's pretty rough.
I know. But that's,
I think that
it's all cyclical.
Yeah. Well, I think that actually leads me into my next question, which was something Josue and everybody's kind of touched upon. This show was probably a little controversial when it first came out, and even in the foreword that is in the stage directions, it's kind of hinted at that it wasn't the best well received in when it debuted in 1921. So I just want to ask you guys, like, what would you think is what do you think made it controversial when the play debuted? Audrey?
I think it says in the thing pretty well that like the first two acts were great and mind-blowing and like definitely set up our main character for some some, moving and shaking. And then the third act comes and you're like, oh, well, they tried. And it's like kind of a disappointment. Like, I will be the first to admit I love a happy ending. I love love, la, 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 la. But like, it kind of undermines a lot of the stuff. Now, the way they went about it was great, but also like, there's a lot of buildup for something that just kind of makes you go, oh, okay. All right. Well, that was that.
Mhm.
BB moment.
Andre, I saw your hand pop up.
I was gonna say, going back to Carissa's point of older generations kind of not, kind of saying, talking to a younger generation. I think sometimes it also comes from like experience, like maybe they were the wild child and they got hurt, similar to what kind of happens with Ted and Billy. Like they do all this thing and it really doesn't kind of work out, and they are kind of hurting a bit. I think to answer your question, I think maybe that is a bit of a letdown, as Audrey said in that third act, where you're just like, oh wait, okay, so like things are not good after that. Like we did all of this, and you were this woman of the world, and everything, and then it turns out that it isn't worth it.
Amanda, Josue, and then Courtney.
I also think it was super controversial or received as such at the time because the 19th Amendment wasn't even fully ratified until 1920. So that was a new banging law that a lot of people didn't agree with, probably. Like, we weren't even allowed to vote. We weren't even people yet. And then this came out. So it's similar to some of the other works when you think about civil rights movements or gay rights movements, how those now are still being fought to be overturned. Currently, today, it's like the biggest topic or one of the biggest topics right now. So if, plays that come out, and I think, because I'm going to always relate it to Schitt's Creek, that show is such a big deal because they're just existing in a town where it's not a big deal that someone's gay. And that's like mind-blowing that could even be the normal way of life. And so I think at this time in 1920s, this was not a normal way of life where a woman could even go to parties without being a hussy. It was like very in your face about everything that was happening at the time and was topical at that time. I'm sure there were people all throughout the 20s and 30s who were they're still trying to overturn our rights as ladies, changing it back the other way. So
yes, don't worry, they'll die soon.
Hopefully. But Amy Coleman, oh well, she won't.
Anyway. Josue?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think like I don't know exactly everything that I feel or think about it, but it's like the through line is like agency, and I think I feel a little bit stronger about that, knowing a little bit of the context that Amanda gave, that it was during when the 19th Amendment was getting put in place. But when you think about it, like the whole first act is about kind of like sexual freedom and like freedom to have sex and not be married, or have sex and not be attached, and all these things. And then in a way, the second act maybe is about like freedom to choose whom I want to marry, because everybody's like, just marry Scotty and it'll be fine. You're like, are you sure you don't want to marry him? You kind of love him. And it's like, it's very much this like forced thing, this pressure that I'm sure was common. And then the last one, which is kind of like weirdly muddled in this like, I don't know, like saccharine like ending of like, oh, won't you marry me? But I think it's like financial independence in a way, because all of it is around, you know, like Ted's identity is in a way revolved around her economic status. Like, you know, there's suspicion that Scotty was doing it for the money, and of course there's suspicion that Billy was doing it for the money. So she's like, no, look, I'm my own person, and my money and the money doesn't have to define me. But I mean, that being said, I don't think it's that clear. It just seems like that's kind of the argument that is being made in each of them, you know.
Courtney.
I was thinking about how we talked about how the third act and the way it ended, did act 1 and 2 mean anything? And thinking about that and this kind of self-fulfilling prophecy that we have with these generational things. We're all so open when we're young and so free and doing all these things. And then as we get older, so they say, we get more, I don't want to use the word conservative, but, you know, just more like, oh, clutching our pearls. I can't believe they've done that. And how do I want to put this? It made me think about, does all that freedom and the controversy at the beginning, does it matter when it ends up, she ends up getting married at the end? And it makes me think about like the hero's journey of when you have your ordinary world and you kind of leave your ordinary world, and in the end you go back to your ordinary world, but something has changed and you're forever and you bring that back to your ordinary world. So I think of the ending in terms of that, like, yeah, she goes back to her quote unquote ordinary world, but how do I want to put this? But she's kind of bringing all that freedom back with her. Like Josue said about how it became freedom and then freedom to marry, and it evolves and things don't totally go back to normal, because how can it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think those are good points. I mean, for me personally, like, I think so much of the controversy around this would probably have been stirred up. So much of it is the momentum moved forward is by Ted, and how she kind of controls, kind of like we all have said, like she controls the narrative, but even more so than that, like she really doesn't do any of the things that you would think would be, like, she doesn't sleep with Scotty in the farmhouse. She doesn't, it's never super clear, but I don't think she sleeps with Bill while she's living out on her own and doing all that stuff. And she's like, the controversy was less about the sex and more about how just the rumors could destroy someone's reputation. And then, yes, Audrey.
I was just going to say, I feel like making love in the text is maybe a turn of phrase and not actually having anything to do with actual sex. Maybe like flirting or making nice with someone was kind of more the thing.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
Oh, no,
I
it was
didn't
involved
think it
football, but
having sex with anybody.
I
just
think I've
finished,
heard
like,
that as well.
yeah,
Hey,
right.
Andre, what did you say?
I'm actually gonna look it up right now.
Okay, yeah, I'm very curious.
Down.
Well, yeah, because they did make the comment that there's kissing and kissing, and that
Yes.
kissing's no handshakes.
Right. So they
Right.
can like make out and fool around a little bit, but like I don't think that when they say in the play, like when Gloucester and Margaret say, you know, they're out making love, blah, blah, blah. I don't think they're actually talking about sex. I think it's just a turn of phrase to be like flirty and like crushing on someone.
Wait, who says that?
They could be reading each other
Gloucester
poetry.
says it. Yeah, Gloucester says it. Margaret says it he says it.
Mm.
Does only the older characters say
Yes.
that?
Yes.
So I kind of think like, if I can, sometimes like, it's what your parents say, like, right? Oh, that's what they call fun now. oh, that's what they call
Mhm.
this now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe in their head, like you're out there making love, and you're like, no, I'm just going to a party. I'm just going to breakfast in the morning. And
Yeah.
is that what they call it? Kind of thing.
Yeah.
In
Sure.
my head, I mean,
Well,
The other
I'm-
thing kind of-
Because we all know what happened before breakfast.
okay.
she saw your hand pop up. And sorry, then we'll go back to you, Audrey.
I think everyone's making great points. I just think for me personally, the biggest controversy of this play, which is something that is seen till today, is a woman taking a stance irrevocably, without guilt, without shame, and being
Mhm.
vocal about it. I think the fact that Teddy, is so cemented in doing whatever she wants and not apologizing for it, that for me is the biggest controversy, because all the things that everyone is saying, these are all pieces of it, and it's circled around this like nucleus core of the fact that I am who I am. You guys are old heads. You're worried about things that no one's worried about anymore, and I'm being vocal about it, and I'm not being shameful about it, and you can't shame me for it. Like, yes, we see in the third act that she kind of breaks down a little bit because she's away from daddy's money for a little bit, and she's a little out of the world and she's not used to it. But even still in the third act, she's still doing what she wants to do. And the fact that, I mean, someone mentioned it before, the fact that she even proposed to a man, a woman proposing to a man during that time, is unheard of. And she does it shamelessly, or at least that is how it's viewed, that it's like, oh, you're such a shameless hussy kind of thing. But it's just the fact that she's just, I am who I am. I am free. I'm not apologizing. I'm unapologetic about all of this. And I think especially during that time, it's unheard of. A woman being so shameless is so unheard of. And even someone brought up the example of WAP. The fact that, Cardi B and Meg Thee Stallion were talking about WAP, and it's like, whoa, you're putting this in the radio waves. You're fully supportive of women using their body for however they choose. How dare you? You're shameless about the fact that you can do whatever you want to do with your body. It's still something today that is controversial for a woman to be proud of her body and not feel shame for however she uses her own autonomy. And I think that for me is the center of that controversy.
And I think too, they just, as a point to that, so many rap songs are about women's bodies, and that's one thing, and doesn't affect their reputation or anything. But then women, as soon as they're talking about their own bodies, everyone's like, oh my God, no, which is also in a way mentioned in this text repeatedly when she's like, you're a man, this won't affect your reputation, no one cares if you stay out all night, it's only the woman that gets shamed.
Right.
And that's still going on.
And that's still something that goes on today. Exactly.
Josue, then Andre.
Behead all the men.
I will say it's like there's something like, how do we shut these people up? Because as we said, all these things have been brought up before. Like, this is cyclical with Cole Porter, with Lil Kim, who, was doing everything Cardi B was doing way back in the day. All the stuff was said about her too. And it's like, I don't like what do we, there will always be people that are crying about this kind of stuff. And I wonder what the best way is to like handle them. And I seriously like am posing the question, because the way I usually do it is by ignoring people or like not associating myself, or just being like, shut up, like who cares, like what do you like, whatever, like what do I have a problem with this?
Well, I think as your status as a man, number one is for you to help come be our ally and speak up against it. And when you hear other men being incorrect or inappropriate towards a woman about whatever the case, then you say, why? And have them explain themselves. Or if you see a girl getting harassed on the street, then you say, what are you doing, dude? And all that sort of stuff, where if you call out the behavior of the other men or women who are misbehaving and talking down about the gender, then you could, that's like a step towards like fixing it.
I think too, as hard as it is, it all starts when you're young, because when our brains they're like Play-Doh, and every single little thing we take in from our parents or whoever, that defines who we are. And I see it all the time as a babysitter, like the way kids parrot the things that we say. And I try to take it upon myself to say, hey, not shame the kid, but hey, how about let's look at it this way, or let's look at this. And it's a little, some people think it's stepping on the toes, but I think that's how we break the cycle, because then it becomes that generational cycle of the parent teaches the kid this, that's all the kid knows, the kid grows up, it goes on and on and on.
Mm-hmm. Audrey and Andre.
Thing to the cyclical conversation, and this is just a little blip, but the people who are complaining about what they're seeing happen create the scenario to make said things happen. Do we not inherently sexualize young women to be products to sell to the public and then shame them while they do it? It's like, okay, so I guess the way that
you can't sell your own product.
No, you can't sell your own product.
You can only look like the product, and then men can sell you.
No, yeah. So men are selling the product that they damn whilst selling it. So yes, behead all the
Men.
Behead all the men. That is all.
Andre?
Number 2.
I was gonna say, I wonder if, while we were reading this, I was saying, I wonder if most of the critics were just rich men who are like, oh, women can't be this way, and you can't have all these options, and you can't. We wouldn't want our little young girls to see a woman doing this, and they. I would think. I always think these type of people that oppress always look at the wrong things or never understand what's really going on. Like you look at, like for instance, Aunt Margaret kept saying, I kind of felt like she was shaming Ted's amusement. Like she just wanted to have fun and just live her life. And rather than be like, rather than like focus on how can we make men better, it kind of felt like it's your fault. Like she was blaming Ted that these men were sleeping around because you're flaunting and partying with them, and you're putting yourself in dangerous situations because you're flaunting. And even marrying Scotty, it's like you have to go and marry Scotty now because you were flaunting around with him. And it's just like all we were doing was driving. Like I was just in a car with Ted. So I think to answer Josue's question, to tell these people to shut up, I think almost gives them more fire. And then go back to Amanda's point. Schitt's Creek, like it shows you the options of what life can be and how it's not. There was no homophobia. See what the world looked like without any type of homophobia, or the fact that we didn't really have to talk about the fact that we're gay. It's just they were together and it was cool and it was funny. And I feel like a lot of times, even now, we have maybe plays and stories that show the struggle and show the homophobia and try to teach you lessons. And we try to, parents, they keep their kids, sheltered instead of maybe having more options to show them a world where things are just good and it's okay.